Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Harvard-trained Nieman Fellow, Arise correspondent Adefemi Akinsanya. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good to see you too. I didn't see you yesterday. Thank you very much. Rufai and I did a great job of welcoming me back onto the studio yesterday. And now I feel really special that I've got with Dr. Ruben too. Good to see you. Well, we're looking at, as you said, stories from around the world. But let's start here in Nigeria. If we're looking at the front page of this day, the story that jumped out at me were comments from CBN Governor Olayemi Cardoso. He says that Nigeria does not require IMF support, IMF funding, that's the International Monetary Fund, to close its liquidity gap. He made these comments in an interview with Bloomberg, and he says that Nigeria has enough on ground to see him through. Talking about that enough on ground, he mentioned that in the first quarter of this year, Nigeria's forex inflows reached $24 billion. So to him, that is a testament and a signal to Nigeria's ability to handle this situation on its own. I will bring in you all for comments, but because we are short on time, I'm going to run through the other Nigerian papers before we come over for comments. Moving now on to Business Day. And Business Day, on the front page, they're reporting that Turkey has now joined the likes of the United Arab Emirates and Turkey to take visa on arrival and e-visas away from Nigerian citizens. That is no secret to all of us, especially when we're looking at the United Arab Emirates. There's been a lot of back and forth about whether or not this decision is going to go back. The last we heard is that towards the end of the year, the United Arab Emirates should lift its own restriction, but it is quite a concern. On one hand, there is feelings of discrimination, and on the other hand, I always make the joke that if you spin a globe around and lay your finger in any country in the world, you will find a Nigerian there. So perhaps there is some sort of cadence to these countries making these decisions. That being said, I do think that citizens should have the right, just like any other citizen in any other country, to decide that they want to travel on a country because they want to go there, instead of having to find out first, or what country am I most likely to get a visa for. I do think that it is discriminatory in nature, and perhaps there should be something that should be done to allow Nigerians the same rights as other citizens when they choose to leave their country. Moving on then from Business Day to the Vanguard, and they discuss cholera and about how cases in Nigeria across 32 states have reached 1,579 cases, and subsetting from that, there are 54 deaths from cholera. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu says that he thinks that this is a situation that has been caused by poor sanitation and, of course, contaminated water. But then that beggars the question about why there isn't clean and potable water across Lagos, across Nigeria, to protect its citizens against waterborne diseases like this. And then finally, moving on to the Daily Trust, there is some information about the mining pit collapse in Niger State. That happened 3 weeks ago, yet and still 30 people still remain trapped. A few mutilated bodies were pulled from the rubble. But if you look at that article, the families of the people still there say that that number of 30 is quite less than what it should be. They believe some 50 people still remain missing 3 weeks later. So, Ayo, Rufai, Dr. Ruben, I know that was a lot of information that we went through just yet. Feel free to jump in at any story that you'd like to discuss.
I want to talk about the mining thing. Sure. And it's very sad. You know, when this mining thing happened in Niger State, that was when the governor, the deputy governor, they all went on their pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia, and people had been asking, why did they abdicate their responsibility? If we truly want to build a viable mining sector, we must be able to account for when mining accidents happen. What's the best technology to be able to get people out there? People are still trapped for over 3 weeks. Only God knows they're going to survive. And it's not just about the ministry saying, okay, we are going to give compensation and all of that to their families. We must be able to have a way to bring them out. We always have mining accidents everywhere around. You know, I think the mining, industry is so apt for even the use of canary to be able to check levels of bad gases there. But here, it is lack of technology. And we're just going to leave people to die like that. So it's something we must look at. The story about the visa ban, Ayo and I were just talking about, Ayo had investigated it. And it has even been on for a while, and most Nigerians didn't even notice. From 2022, that Nigeria had taken off the list of those that can get e-visas and all of that. And most of us didn't even notice. So these are the things we keep saying. But obviously, we trust that Mr. Kiyamo will be able to get on this and see how he can reverse a lot of it, just like he's been working on the Dubai thing and how we can get, ourselves back on. Right. And, because we must get to a point where the Nigerian passport is really respected. I mean, it was a very sad sight that my very dear friend, Ambassador Olukani, that was former ambassador to Austria, tried getting an Austrian visa.
Australia.
Huh?
Australia,
yeah. Tried getting an Australian visa and he couldn't get it.
Wasn't able to get one.
So these are the things we should, and these are the things we keep saying.
Yeah. Okay, all right, just very quickly with the visa issue. Business, they also did an expose a few days back on the number of property investors in Dubai. And so what it shows is that they want our money, but they don't want our people. And that's why, yes, you can say that, a lot of people are in their countries, but we have to talk about the fact that we're not just, nuisances or just there to take and take. We put a lot of money into these economies, into these countries. Dubai, for instance, Nigeria is top 5 in terms of, even though that's a lot of question there, because that exposed a lot of civil servants who should not have enough money to buy properties in those places.
Yeah.
So that's another question. But we take our monies there. So they welcome it, but they don't welcome our people. It's beyond the Minister of Aviation. The Minister of Foreign Affairs also has a role to play. Recall when we were also speaking to, we talked about Bahamas not being visa-free for Nigerians, while some other African countries have. And he said, they're in conversations with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Right. We have to have a diplomatic conversation. We need to reinstate ourselves as not just the giants of Africa, but also the fact that we're equal partners. It must be reciprocal. We welcome these people, although we need to talk about the process of getting visas to Nigeria. Absolutely. That is also under contention.
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult and expensive.
A visa is issued basically on the prerogative of the issuing nation. So we can be as emotional as we want to be about people not giving us visa on arrival or not treating us well. Well, it's their prerogative. That is the issue. But the point about reciprocity is that, you have the chance under international law to do the same thing to their own people. Now, this is not this is not a new subject, but I'd like to remind all of us what Abike Dabiri-Irewa, chairman of the Diaspora Commission, always says in this regard. That, look, many of our people, when they go to other countries, they give us a bad name and creating problems for the Nigerian passport. There's something they call the passport index, where they rank the quality of the passport of your country in terms of the number of countries it can take you to. Go and check Nigeria on that list. We're down the line there, also because of the way our people behave. And Abike Dabiri was saying, if you're in Rome, do like the Romans. In Dubai, we had issues with the way Nigerians were abusing the opportunity. Ethiopia is a slightly closed society, and also Turkey now, which used to be a major destination for Nigerians because it's the production capital of Europe. Now they too are saying Nigerians cannot get visa on arrival. You go to their embassy. So we have to look at both sides. As for the minister, the central bank governor, saying we have enough liquidity, where policy efforts are addressing issues of, tax to GDP ratio, and that recapitalization of banks will ensure stability and all that. Very good news. And he says we are not going to go to IMF. In fact, we are very happy about that. Look at what going to IMF has cost in Kenya. Yeah. Right. Look at how people in Ghana are also saying if anybody goes to IMF. So, many Nigerians will not even want the IMF pills. If indeed, as the CBN governor promises, that policy efforts are working, but we want to see tangible results of those policy efforts, not on paper, but in terms of how,
Agreed.
Those policies transform.
Agreed. And then mentioning Ghana, 10 years ago, former President Mahama said that he was one of the first I remember saying, we are going to go it alone. Perhaps he foresaw the future as it pertains to relying too heavy on the International Monetary Fund or the World Bank or the likes. Well, you know how it goes.
Nigerians, I'm sure, don't want the IMF bill.
No, we don't.
Because Nigerians like to imitate people. Let them not go and do something that will make us start imitating Kenyans.
Understood. Well, talking about Kenya, let's move on to an African paper. We look at the Citizen of South Africa, and their picture on the front page of the Citizen of South Africa takes a look at poaching, specifically poaching to do with rhinos. And what scientists in South Africa have started doing is injecting the rhino horns with radioactive material. They say that material will not be harmful to the animals, but it can be potentially fatal to human beings. It is another effort to curb against poaching. It's a tricky one because we haven't been able to hear what other animal protection societies have to say about this, whether or not they agree that injecting radioactive material into the horns of these animals will keep the animals safe. I'm sure that is the primary objective, but clearly this just is another example of how strange and how toxic this poaching epidemic is. I will rush over from Africa to now the United Kingdom. We know that just yesterday was the final television debate between the leader of the Labour Party and the incumbent Prime Minister, that is Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer, and they were going back and forth. It was a bitter debate.
You say it's incoming.
No, I said incumbents, please.
Oh, okay.
Please, I say incumbents, please. I do not. I was about to say I don't have a dog in this fight, but I'm not putting any voice behind any candidate. Yesterday, Rufai and Ayo both said that they see this being there's only going to be a shift in leadership next week. Who knows? But it was quite a tough debate. You had Prime Minister Rishi Sunak saying that Keir Starmer was effectively lying to the people about taxes and how increasing tax under Labour is just not a feasible thing. And he did say that, are people going to be comfortable paying more than £2,000 extra in tax? Clearly, nobody's going to be happy about that. And then on the other side, you do have Keir Starmer talking about gambling gates. So it's definitely going to be a lot of mudslinging.
Well, on the tax, the Office of Statistics Regulation, the first time, Rishi Sunak brought this up, Office of Statistics Regulation, issued a report saying that it is not true. Where did the Prime Minister get the figure from? Only for the Prime Minister, again, to repeat the lie yesterday. But whether he's repeating lies or not, the polls, Ipsos and YouGov, have made it clear, even just looking at the politics, it shows that the British, they are tired of the tourists after 14 years.
It's been a long time.
And the outcome of this next election, on July 4, is almost predictable. Well, thank you very much, Adefemi Akinsanya. Good to have you back on the table.